All right, so Fresh Lifelines for Youth, otherwise known as FLY. We are a juvenile justice nonprofit. We work with young people who are at risk of incarceration or ending up on probation, and we do a bunch of programs for them. And we also work to make our juvenile justice system more equitable and just through our systems change work. So let me tell you a little bit more about that. First, my story. So I was in high school from 2001 to 2004. Back in 2001, I traveled with Saratoga Federated Church with Mr. Gallagher. He was the youth pastor at the time. He was my youth pastor for many years. And we went to Mexico. We went to Tijuana, Mexico to build houses for people who needed them. And I actually went on that trip several times, probably 5 or 6 times in my life. And it really, every time I went, it just opened my eyes to poverty in the world, challenges that people experience that are really different from what I experienced growing up in Los Gatos as a young person. So it really got me thinking, and it opened my perspective to how I might be able to help and support folks in need, essentially. So fast forward to 2006, I'm in college at UC San Diego. I'm studying history and political science. And through that, I realized, I think what I really want to do is become an immigration attorney. I want to do public interest law and really use the law to help people, to support immigrants who want to stay in the United States, because I feel like they should have that chance. So in 2008, I graduated from college, and it was also the year that the economy crashed. And that's important for later. So in 2012, I graduated from law school. I went to University of Washington in Seattle for law school. They have a great public interest law program where they really teach you how to use the law to benefit the public. And I moved back to the Bay Area from Seattle, where I'm from, moved back in with my parents after law school and started studying for the California bar exam and looking for a job as an attorney, an entry-level attorney position. And unfortunately, there just weren't very many entry-level attorney jobs, especially in the public interest sector. The economy had really taken a turn and jobs were slow to recover. So I was having a hard time finding a job. But a friend of mine had told me about FLY, and their legal education class. So she invited me to volunteer to teach the law program to teenagers who are on probation or who are locked up in juvenile hall, to teach them about their rights and responsibilities under the law, and just to be, a positive influence for them. And I started volunteering for FLY, and I just fell in love with the organization and what the organization was trying to do, and especially how the organization was using the law in this way to really uplift people and support young people and give them information and educate them and inform them. So when I couldn't find a job as an attorney, I passed the bar. So that's great. Now I'm a member of the Bar Association, but I couldn't really find the right job that I was looking for. So I decided to apply for a job in FLY's programs. And in 2013, I started my first job at FLY in the mentor program, recruiting and training volunteers to become mentors. And I loved that job. It was awesome. I didn't feel like I was using my law degree very much, but I really loved the work. And then this other job opening came up at FLY after about a year of me doing that, managing all of our grants. And I thought this could be really cool because it uses my law degree in a little bit of a different way, but it still really uses that education. So it's a lot of technical writing, it's contracts management and negotiations. So I applied for that job and they gave it to me, even though I didn't have any experience in grants management. They still gave it to me. So they took a chance on me. And 6 years later, I'm now the vice president of development at FLY. So I've held several different roles over the years in our development and fundraising efforts. And now I'm leading that department and just loving my job, loving the work that we're doing and feeling really fulfilled. So this is just hopefully a little bit of advice to you all that your path doesn't have to look super straight and narrow. You could end up in a job that you really love, doing something that's really impactful and meaningful, even if it's not exactly how you planned it. So that's me and FLY. And now we're going to zoom way out away from me as a person to our country as a whole. So the United States makes up about 5% of the world's population, but about 25% of the world's prison population. So fully 1/4 of the people who are locked up around the world are in the United States in that justice system. In California, juvenile incarceration costs almost $800 a day, almost $300,000 per year for one person to be incarcerated, one young person. And in the 3 counties that Fly works in, Santa Clara County, Alameda County, and San Mateo County, it's various costs, but it's all more than the state average, right? So in Santa Clara County, it's like almost $1,500 a day to incarcerate a young person. We spend a lot of money on incarceration. California incarcerates more kids than any other state. They incarcerate more kids than Texas, which is the second most populous state in the country. There are other consequences besides just the money that we're spending, obviously. Poverty and incarceration are tied hand in hand a lot of times, and it can become a generational cycle. So 1 in every 50 children in the US has a parent in prison, and more than 6 million Americans can't vote because they have a felony conviction. And similarly, there are a lot of other barriers when people are, when they come back from incarceration, when they re-enter their communities. They have a hard time finding jobs. They have a hard time finding housing. They have a hard time pursuing their education, getting things back on track. So it really is costly to our society to lock people up the way that we do. This gives you a little bit of an idea of the disproportionate effect of incarceration on different people with different identities in the United States. So this is kind of shocking. This definitely always surprises me. So of all men in the United States, 1 in 9 will experience incarceration. For Black men, it's 1 in 3 men will be incarcerated at some time in their lifetime. For women, for all women, it's 1 in 56. For Black women, it's 1 in 18. For Latino women, it's 1 in 45. So you can see there's clearly a disproportionate effect on people of color, specifically Black and Latino or Hispanic people. Our justice system has a racism problem, right? And there's a bias in that system that targets Black and brown people. And in the juvenile justice system, 80% of youth in the Bay Area who are incarcerated are youth of color. Only 20% are white youth, even though not nearly 80% of the young people in the Bay Area are youth of color. It's disproportionate. And you can see that here in Santa Clara County, where we are right now, for every 1 white youth that's arrested, it's 4 youth of Hispanic or Latino descent and 9 Black youth. So Black youth are 9 times more likely to be arrested, and they're almost 17 times more likely to be incarcerated than white youth. So where does FLY come in? FLY works to disrupt the pipeline to prison that we see for many young people, especially young people of color, LGBTQ plus youth, and other youth from other marginalized identities. So we envision a country where all of our kids grow up valued and supported. And this pipeline to prison is replaced with meaningful opportunities for young people to live healthy and free and productive lives. And hopefully this will lead us to stronger, safer, and more vibrant communities. Here's some information about the young people that we serve. These are our populations. So our service population, this is youth in our programs. Our programs serve youth anywhere from age 11 to age 24. Different programs have different service populations. And we're looking for young people who are currently or formerly or at risk of involvement in the juvenile justice system. So maybe they've had contact with the police, maybe they're on probation, maybe they've been incarcerated, maybe they just have the risk factors. So they have needs that show that they could become incarcerated over time. They have trauma, they come from poverty, they're young people of color. The target population. So among our service population, we really target a specific population where we think we can make the most impact. And that's high school age youth who are medium to high risk or who are currently involved in the justice system. And the way the places where we serve youth are locked facilities like juvenile hall, in the community setting, like after school at community centers, or in schools during the day. I mean, right now during COVID-19, we're doing everything on Zoom, but that's still where we're kind of targeting finding our young people who are incarcerated, young people who are in alternative and continuation schools, maybe young people who haven't been successful in their mainstream high schools. They've been suspended a lot or expelled. They might end up in a continuation school. And that's where FLY comes in, because we want to support those kids. And geographically, these are all the cities last year where youth came from that were in our FLY programs. So I think this is something like 42 cities across 3 Bay Area counties. We also did some work in Monterey County as well last year, which was really exciting. And we're always looking to expand to new regions as well. So you can see here San Jose right here. Oakland is up here in Alameda County. San Francisco's up here. This is San Francisco County above San Mateo County. And this is the peninsula. This is the bay coming down. All right, how did FLY start? So back in 1998, really, our founder, Krista, was at Stanford Law School, and she really wanted to start a street law program teaching young people in juvenile hall in Santa Clara County about the law. She'd heard about these street law programs that law students were teaching, and she thought, I want to do that for young people who are incarcerated. So she went to Santa Clara County Juvenile Hall, and she started teaching the law in the maximum security unit. And back in the 90s, our juvenile justice system was very punitive. It was all about punishment. There were some really serious punishments for some of these young people. A lot of these young men that Krista was working with were looking at getting transferred from juvenile hall straight to adult prison when they turned 18. So they were just waiting to be transferred, and they were looking at 10-year sentences, some of them longer. So these young people were struggling. They had a hope problem, right? They were struggling with how things could have been different for them. And Krista asked them, hey, what can I do to make a difference for young people who are out there so that they don't end up where you are now? And what they said was the if onlys, these if onlys really stuck with Krista. That's what she remembered. They said, if only someone had taught me about the law and consequences of crime, if only I'd known how much trouble I could get into, if only someone had been there for me, a positive role model that I could really look up to, if only I had a positive influence in my life. And they said, if only someone had taught me to be a leader in my community, maybe I could help other kids, and maybe I could have been that positive influence for someone. So Krista took these things, and she really made them the foundation of what FLY became in terms of our programming. So when young people come to us, a lot of our young people are coming from really intense circumstances. And we ask them this question, where do you see yourself at age 18 or age 21, depending on how old they are? And a lot of them say, by then I'm going to be in prison or I'm going to be dead. And that's a tough place to be coming from. So what we do at FLY is, a lot of what we do is really try to instill hope for our young people for their futures. As I said, our young people are coming from tough circumstances. Over 90% say that they don't have a positive role model in their life. 8 out of 10 say they don't have the basic life skills to make healthy choices. And almost 8 out of 10 have experienced significant trauma in their lives that can really affect their mental health and affect their decision-making and their brain development. In terms of cost comparisons, I thought y'all might find this slide interesting because some of you might be thinking about going to college, right? So a year at San Jose State University, a year's tuition is about $25,000 a year. At UC Berkeley, about $27,000. Menlo High School, private high school in the area, $42,000, $43,000. The cost per year to incarcerate one youth in California is $284,000. So you can see here how much more we're investing on incarceration than we are on youth education. And FLY just doesn't think that's right. We want to be an alternative. Our nonprofit and what we do, we want to be an alternative to incarcerating youth. And we feel like we can not only change lives that way and change communities, but we can save the taxpayers some money. So here's what we do. We provide leadership training. We provide legal education. We provide mentoring. and we work on systems change. So we have 6 different programs that serve different groups of young people, and they all have components of all of these things. So we have a bunch of different program models. We have a middle school program that combines legal education with case management and coaching and mentoring. We have a mentoring program that specifically uses volunteer mentors. And those volunteer mentors work with youth on probation. They become court advocates for youth on probation. And they get to be in the courtroom kind of speaking to the positive aspects of their mentee. And then they get to be outside of the courtroom supporting their mentee toward their life goals. So those are just 2 examples. We have a bunch of different programs for various ages. And really the goal here is to keep youth free, to help them build skills, to help them thrive, and to help them advance in their education. So after FLY, at least 8 out of 10 youth report that they are inspired to change. They have hope for their futures. They're less likely to break the law. They understand the legal system. More than 8 out of 10 youth in our leadership program, our most intensive program, are not convicted of a new crime during the program year. And 8 out of 10 youth in the leadership program improve their educational outcomes too. So they might graduate from high school while they're with us if they're on track to graduate. That we could help them get re-engaged in school. Say they're not going to school at all. Just getting re-engaged and connected with school, that's going to be so important to them. So we really meet young people where they are, and we try to support them with us while they're with us to take that next step. And then we really try to build those skills that they need to be able to take the next step on their own once their year with us is over. And FLY does this for less than 1/10 of the cost of incarcerating a young person. So all of our programs cost for that same period of time less than 1/10 of what it would cost to lock that young person up. So I think we're a viable alternative to incarceration for young people. So COVID-19, it's changed the whole world. As you all know, it's changed everything. I can see you all on Zoom right now, so you know how it is. And it's changed us too. So the needs of our clients has really gone up. A lot of our young people's parents don't have jobs right now. Our young people are having a hard time getting jobs to support themselves and their families. There's just some real poverty happening. It's also harder to get to our young people. Probation departments are having a harder time tracking young people down and referring them and encouraging them to come to our programs. Schools are all virtual. So it used to be in a lot of schools. I think we've gotten back into about 70% of the schools we were serving before, but there's still about 30% that are trying to figure out online learning, and they just can't, they can't do programs like FLY right now because they're still trying to figure stuff out. And then we're really trying to take care of our staff at FLY because COVID-19 is hard. The pandemic is tough, and people are working from home, and a lot of them are caring for their kids and trying to work at the same time. So we're really trying to take care of them. So that's where we are now. We're really proud to still be serving young people through this pandemic and serving them in different ways and meeting their needs. And moving to the future, we have a very ambitious 10-year goal that started it's really started in 2019, but it's kind of a 10-year vision toward 2030. Now, FLY has been growing and growing, and we want to accelerate that growth and grow even faster. So our goal is that by 2030, by partnering with young people and communities and systems, we're going to dismantle California's pipeline to prison for kids. We're going to equip 30,000 youth to transform their lives, and we're going to strengthen services for youth in California and beyond. And we have a plan to do that. We have 4 pathways to make that a reality. We're going to expand our services. We're going to do our systems change work to really make these juvenile justice systems more equitable, less biased, more just, and really help meet youth where they are and meet their needs instead of just punishing them and exacerbating the problem. And then we really want to elevate the whole field. We want to teach folks what we've learned over the past 20 years that we've been operating. So we're planning on launching an initiative called the Lifeline Institute, where we can do trainings and technical assistance, where we can support other nonprofits to learn what we're doing. Because we can't be everywhere. It takes a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of staff to launch a program like FLY. But there are great organizations doing really good work. And if we can just support them to do it a little bit better and work with juvenile justice youth, then everybody wins. And then finally, we really want to build evidence of our impact. We want to show that we have a strong impact on young people and on systems. All right, we have a few volunteer opportunities at Fly. These are all for adults 21 and older. So currently you all wouldn't be able to volunteer, but I hope someday you'll come volunteer. And just because these are the volunteer opportunities with our clients doesn't mean you can't get involved. So we talked, Tim and I, Mr. Gallagher and I talked in the last class a little bit about how you might be able to get involved with Fly. But some of the volunteer opportunities we have available for adults are teaching our law program. That's how I got involved. It's a 12-week program. It's weekly. We teach young people about the law. It's awesome. The CAFA Mentor Program, that's that program I talked about where volunteers are court advocates for youth and they're also mentors. That's a year-long program. And then we have sort of opportunities for volunteers to help out with various special events as well. All right, Tim, do we have time this time?
Yeah.
About 3 minutes? Okay. I'm going to share with you a story from one of the young people that went through our program. She taped this in just in the fall for our big fundraising event in December. Her name is Amy. She's very impressive. Let me just make sure, share sound. And of course, it's having a hard time.
At Fly.
Can you all hear it? Uh-oh. There you go.
We reimagine justice by putting our words into actions. When I was 7 years old, my family could no longer afford to live in a house when my parents lost their jobs. We were forced to live in a family friend's garage. My sister, mom, dad, and I shared one mattress in our new home. Soon after, my mom found a new job at a local dry cleaners, while my dad found comfort in drinking. His drunken nights led to daily fights with my mom, and these fights would end with my mom, sister, and I spending the night at my mom's work on top of other people's dirty laundry. Angry that this was my life, I took my frustrations out on the world. At the age of 16, I was arrested for home invasion and placed on probation. Unfortunately, being arrested did not wake me up like it was supposed to. I continued to ditch school, do drugs, and throw away the life that I never wanted. My probation officer noticed my behavior, and instead of turning away and giving up on me, she highly encouraged, kind of forced me into Fly's mentor program, where I was paired with my mentor, Crystal. Crystal taught me how to be resilient and gave me an outlet for my pain and trauma. Most importantly, Crystal gave me the guidance, care, and affection that I lacked from my own family. In 2014, I was able to graduate from high school, get off of probation, and stay out of trouble. In 2017, after earning my associate's degree in psychology at Evergreen Valley College, I transferred to the University of California, Merced, where I earned my bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in anthropology. I graduated in the top 2% of my class and was nominated by the Department of Psychology as the Outstanding Graduating Psychology Student. Currently, I'm finishing up my master's in psychology at San Jose State, where I hold a 4.0 GPA, and I was awarded the Exceptional Educational Resilience Award. This fall, I began the process of applying to doctoral programs to earn my PhD and will be the first Fly alum to accomplish this.
Okay, so that was Amy's story. And I hope that just gives you a little bit of a glimpse of what our young people are capable of. They're amazing. Amy is an amazing example of the resilience of our kids. She came from a really tough circumstances. She found herself incarcerated, but she had one mentor through our program that really helped her kind of set and reach her goals. And watch, she talks about how watching her mentor graduate from college is what helped her imagine herself at college and see herself there. So, role models are so important, and that's just one aspect of what Fly does. So, I hope you all found that kind of interesting and inspiring. And I'm happy to take some questions now.
Great. Remember to put your questions there. That's part of your participation grade today. Hey, before I do the questions, will you talk about you shared a story yourself of somebody that kind of impacted you that you worked with. Can you share that story and then I'll ask you questions?
Sure. Yeah. I told a story in the last class about a young woman that I worked with when I was volunteering for the law program. After a few cycles of volunteering, she just was very defiant in the program. Like, she would show up, and for specifically with me, whenever I was up there, she would interrupt. She'd disrupt the class. She'd ask a ton of really complicated questions and just seemed angry, right? And it was really frustrating for me because there was a class of 10 young people, and I wanted to engage with the material and talk with them, and I felt like this young woman was taking up so much space. And so I really tried to just tamp down on my frustration and change my perspective about this young person. And instead of being frustrated, I tried to get curious, right? And really ask myself, where is this coming from? And what does this young person need to be successful? I started calling her every week between classes and asking her how her week was going. How was school? Are you excited for Fly this week? Anything else you want to talk to me about? And at first, she fully was like, just would blow me off in these phone calls. But over time, she started talking more and more. And I think she actually started looking forward to talking with me. And she started engaging more in class. I started giving her more leadership opportunities in class as well. I'd start putting her in charge of like groups and stuff because I could see her leadership potential. I could see that she wanted to be a leader in that space. And she had the skills, the raw skills to do that. And when we finished the law program, I invited her to join our more intensive leadership training program for young people who have the highest needs. And so she decided to join that program, apply and join. And 2 years later, she came to me and she said, "Hey, I really feel like you took a chance on me. You invested in me. And I feel like you changed my life and put me on the track to success." So she came and thanked me. And that just made me feel so good that I could have that impact on somebody just by, changing the way that I viewed her and really like being curious instead of getting frustrated with how we were interacting.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, first question I'll ask you too. Is Fly planning on expanding to other states? And then there's a question similar to last class. What kind of things are juveniles getting arrested for and getting into trouble for?
Sure. So Fly is we are not planning on expanding our programs and our staff to other states right now. Our 10-year plan is to really expand through technical assistance. So through that idea of the Lifeline Institute. So we may work with nonprofits outside of California to help them understand how we do what we do. But it takes a lot of money and time to expand a nonprofit like Fly. And so we want to be as cost effective and impactful as possible. So our plan right now is to expand our services within California, but use our learning to really elevate the field of nonprofit juvenile justice work to help other people feel like they can work with our target population in their own communities.
And then what other things, where are people getting arrested?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the crimes are like property crimes. A lot of them have to do with cars. Like the car theft thing is really kind of a problem right now in our communities. Youth will steal cars and go joyriding and then get pulled over and get in trouble for that. There are crimes against people. So there's some assault crimes, things like that. That's the biggest thing. Youth don't usually get arrested and incarcerated unless the crime's serious. A lot of times young people get picked up and they get put in the custody of their parents if it's not as serious of an offense.
Great. Talk a little bit about, what we talked about in the last class about other ways that people could be involved potentially. That a couple of people asked that question.
Yeah. So what Mr. Gallagher and I talked about in the last class is, just spreading the word about Fly and who we are. We always are looking for supporters to give of their time and their money and hear about the work that we're doing. Things that people can do is just like have a different perspective on juvenile justice and on youth who are incarcerated, right? So just to spread the word and get the word out there, we thought about you all doing group projects that could be just some innovative way to get the word out there about Fly, and maybe some fundraising efforts attached to that as well.
Yeah, what I was saying is, I was telling her we just did virtual projects, and I don't know if this class, in my other class, they did like an infographic, and then they spread the word, and then you do a GoFundMe. So if any of you are kind of interested in supporting like this effort, and you're seeing, oh my gosh, this is such a huge problem, you could actually probably just email Katie, just have a conversation with her. Maybe there's something that you could do to make that happen. So think about it. Another question is, can you explain the school to prison pipeline a little bit more? That was
yeah. Yes, so there is a pipeline to prison that really pushes especially youth of color out of school because of disciplinary issues, because there is bias in our systems, right? So young people of color are more likely to be disciplined. They're more likely to be expelled and suspended from school. So that's what we call school push out. They also are just less likely to get the attention and positive reinforcement that they need to enjoy school and be good at school, especially young people who are coming from poverty. And so what we're seeing is a real problem of school push out. And when young people are not engaged in school because they don't like school or they don't feel supported in school, they're more likely to be on the streets, and then they're more likely to have contact with law enforcement. So that's how the school to prison pipeline happens. Young people get disengaged with school, or maybe they get suspended or expelled, and then they're out on their own and they end up in tricky situations that could cause them to be incarcerated or come into contact with law enforcement.
What somebody asked, what's the most important lesson you've learned and taken forward with you in life through working with Fly?
I think my biggest lesson is just you don't know someone's story until you interact with them and relate to them. That we all have, we all make assumptions, we all stereotype, we all have bias. But until you really can talk to somebody and hear their story firsthand and create a relationship with them, you're not going to really know who they are and what they're about. So I've just learned to really take my time and try not to make assumptions about people and not to have a certain perspective, but really ask good questions and be curious and learn about people.
Great. So do you find that you are more often than not working with the courts and the legal system, or against the courts and the legal system?
That is such a good question. And, we really partner with our legal system to support young people. And we're really lucky that the juvenile justice systems that we work with currently in the counties that we're in, they really want to support young people. They're progressive, they care about the kids that are in the system. That said, there are still a lot of problems in those systems. And so what we try to do at Fly is come in as a partner and work alongside those systems, but we hold them accountable too. So I wouldn't say, I think there's a advocacy piece that's happening, the systems change piece, where we're kind of working against the system in the sense that we're pushing the system to become more equitable. We're raising issues that are problems in the system. But when it comes to the on the ground services that we're providing for kids who are in these local systems, where we're on the ground working with young people, that's really a partnership between us and the courts and probation, especially because we want access to those young people. We want the courts to refer them. We want the probation officers to refer them. So it's a little bit of a give and a take, but we're lucky that we have a seat at the table and that these systems really respect and trust our opinion.
That's awesome. Okay, so somebody wrote, I heard about the 80% of kids who improve because of Fly's program. What happens to the other 20%? Do you see what happens to the kids who just
Yeah.
they don't stick,
Yeah, that's a tough thing, you know. I think for us, that's hard. There's some young people that we don't see again, right? A lot of our young people come back and visit us years down the line and they say Fly did X, Y, and Z. But for every one of those people, there are youth where we just don't know. We don't know what happens next. Something we're investing in right now is post-program evaluation so we can track young people further and further out from our programs and see where they end up. And that's expensive, but it's so useful to show if we're really having a long-term impact on young people. And I'm sorry to say, I'm sad to say that, you know, the biggest predictor of whether an adult is going to be incarcerated or in the adult criminal justice system is whether they were locked up as a child. So of all of the factors of adult incarceration, locking them up as a kid is the biggest predictor that they'll get locked up as an adult. So, you know, that 20%, maybe they're incarcerated. That I hope not, you know.
Yeah, I was thinking that you're trying to break the cycle. You know, they talk about breaking the
Yeah,
cycle of poverty. You're trying to break this cycle. So if a juvenile is arrested, you're trying to help them not go back to prison.
exactly.
Oh, oh my gosh. Okay, so somebody asked too, how do you get a kid to open up when they're not a very talkative person? Like, how do you? I mean,
Oh my gosh.
not only are they in jail, you know, but then they have that personality where they're just it's just so hard to get to them. Like
Well,
you're
how does Mr. Gallagher do it with all of you? No, I'm just kidding. I sort of. So I think that anytime you're working with teenagers, like you or young people in general, like you just got to be real and authentic because I think young people are really good at spotting BS. They're really good at like seeing through fake. So you just have to like be yourself. And sometimes that means being really goofy and acting stupid because I think young people like that too. They get a kick out of it. So there's a lot that we do to just foster rapport with young people. We do a lot of like cheesy icebreakers. We do a lot of silly games. It's a lot like youth group, honestly. But it's a nonprofit that works with youth involved in the juvenile justice system.
what's the youngest student you will work with?
11.
11. All right,
Yeah.
and what's the oldest?
24.
24. Wow.
Yeah, so we consider ages 18 to 24 transition aged youth. So it's a new kind of a new term. We research shows that brain development doesn't fully happen until young people are 25 or even older. So we're really trying to push this idea that the idea that a young person is an adult that is totally able to make great decisions at 18 is not really borne out by brain research, that we need to treat young people ages who are a little bit older on the older end of the spectrum, especially young people who have had significant trauma, treat them in a way that's developmentally appropriate and not assume that they're going to make the best decisions all the time.
I want to say if anybody else, so you can get class participation points, put your question in there. Tim, you got a question? You got one. I know it.
Yeah, I'll take one.
Take one. So I think I kind of hit all the questions. So if you
Hey,
didn't,
Stewen, are there more girls or boys in the program?
oh right,
There are definitely more boys in our program. It's
really
about 70% boys.
interesting.
Mm.
Interesting. Anybody else have a question there? Nikhil, you got a question?
Um, I think I have one. If like you said, like working with 11-year-olds is like the youngest to work with, is it harder working with like
Socially distanced in the hallways and stairwells during the passing period. Also, please remember to enter the buildings 6 feet apart and use the stairwells in a single file formation. Thank you and have a great day.
Okay, go.
yeah, is it harder like trying to communicate more with like students that are or like kids that are around like 11 years old versus like the older ones?
We definitely try to change the programming based on our younger kids. So we change the curriculum for the law related education stuff we do. The activities are a little different. So it is different for the younger youth. But we really found that working with middle schoolers was important because that's when a lot of these risky behaviors started. for the kids, the high school age kids. So about 5 years ago, we decided, maybe 7 years ago, we decided to expand our reach to younger kids.
Okay.
All right, that'll be it. Katie, thank you so much. Everybody, round of applause. There.
Thank you. It was great to talk with you all. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody, I'll see you tomorrow. Katie, I'll see you in about 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, sounds good.